Alright, what's up? So, as you guys have probably picked up, we got quite a bit of stuff coming up, namely on the 4th here. So, one thing that you guys probably should be aware, okay, between the new two classes, right? The two classes that we've got coming. And I say two classes, it's really one class, but two different varieties. You have a skeletal, spiritual version, right? And a beast tamer version. Okay, the main difference between the skeletal and the spiritual channeler, right, and the beast tamer is fundamentally when you look and you start comparing your pals. Okay, say for example, I'm gonna go work with, say, a set of pals that are going to increase based on the amount of criticality, their damage, the pal damage, the HP they have. You're looking at mainly for skills that are going to be, I guess what I'm trying to get at is Beast Tamer is going to increase the criticality of the particular pals you have, and it's not necessarily going to be dependent on, say, like whether you have a certain combination of certain pals, because what it does is basically the active skill, which is again going back to actually looking at the class, paying very close attention to the active skill. The active skill is going to make your opponent take up to 60% more pal damage. Now, if you are wondering, how does that play out? How is that going to work? Like, is that going to be game breaking? Is it going to be super beneficial for me to go Beast Tamer? Or is it more beneficial to go, say, the Spiritual Channeler? The biggest difference is in that one part, and the other part being the fact that in the Spiritual Tamer route, or the Spirit Channeler for that matter, right, is the combination of actual pals that you have is then going to determine what type of bonuses you're going to get. And so ultimately it's going to play a little differently depending on which pals you have in combination. So like if you want to really make a build and be ready for the 4th and you want to swap over to it, here's one thing I think that jumps out to me if you are going to do this build. You're going to go into the prayer statue and you're going to have all pal damage for one of your sets. Okay, if you want like an idea of what gear pieces you're going to want to probably have, we can talk artifacts real briefly, but I think because it's going to be very heavy on pal damage, right? You're going to notice there's not very many of any items in the entire game that bonus pal damage, with exception to like a couple of different pieces of gear that go off of counter or combo or basic attack in some fashion, right? What I'm getting at is I think a lot of players that are going to go this route are going to ultimately still pick 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so what you do is, normally when you're like a Plume Monarch, right, you're going to go combo damage and crit damage. If you go, say, a warrior, you're going to go counter damage and crit damage. If you go a mage, you're going to go for skill damage, and you might flirt with crit damage a little bit. You might flirt with skill, just going pure skill, crit, and skill damage. But fundamentally, I think when you look at how this new class is going to play out, pal damage is going to be the focus, and then you're going to pair that up with another attribute. What that attribute is, in the case of like a spirit channeler, is going to be really dependent on what pals you're using. All right, but if you get anything from this video, know that you're going to get an extra pal slot. So there are going to be some builds here that exist that I can already tell just at a glance what you could probably end up doing. Say, like, for example, you've wanted to go super shield tank meta, right? You just want to buff the living bejeebus out of a shield and then also get a little bit more out of something that maybe you didn't have before. So, like, for example, a lot of people that play a Plume Monarch build, you guys have probably been wanting to itch, maybe, oh, well, I could throw maybe a little bit of damage, on every basic attack now, or maybe I want to do a little bit more crit rate. Like, I think there's going to be that possible scenario in which you might find that you could advantage, a pal crit combination with these particular pals, because now that you have six, you're going to have a little bit more to play with. However, a big difference that's going to change is a lot of the skills and things that we've come to know and love are also going to get tweaked in a pretty major way. Namely, if you look at like a lot of the actual bonuses and stats for a lot of things, like even in, say, like your souls, you're going to have a lot of players that you're going to be dumping a lot into Guardian Star, for example, if you're going to be playing a Beast Pal Master, so whether you're going Channeler or not, you're going to be dumping a fair bit into that. And as far as your back accessory talents are concerned, I think, because it's going to be so interesting to see how it plays out, they're very anti-evasion for the most part. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what people decide to do in terms of what they want to make that class more tanky, or they want to make it really purely offensive. It's like how you decide to play that out is really going to be up to you. But if you ask me, I think probably going super high on anything that, like for example, you could conceivably like see scenarios where like maybe somebody goes down the Sork route and gets themselves 100% cooldown. You could also conceivably maybe make skill casting fire off more frequently, or you could even maybe pair it up with stun and see what kind of stuns you could pair them up with, because I feel like pal damage in general is going to be kind of interesting to see how much that really does end up tweaking the meta in such a way. Because I mean, obviously your pals, if you ever pay attention to them, they're doing a lot of damage to like a single target at a time. So in a way, you almost kind of need something that is going to do AoE along with your pals, because there's going to be a lot of single target DPS coming off the pals. And for that reason, I think, whether you're single targeting like this and going effectively for the most damage possible, there is a couple of things that I think are kind of odd. Like right now in the current build, we have crit rate, combo counter, but you'll notice that when it looks for PAL damage, you only have PAL damage as a single rate. You don't have PAL crit or anything related to that. And I think there's probably reason for this, but I think it gets dumped into crit rate right now. So there's not really like a clear, easy path to understanding like what exactly your pals are doing in terms of crit and how much damage they're outputting. So when this update finally does launch, we'll have to kind of look for that and see how well that actually plays out. But ultimately, if you are going to make a decision on which one to do, if you ask me, I'm going to do a Beast Tamer build, and I'm going to see how well that plays out. So I've already got pretty much all of the PAL damage I would need in the statue. As far as the actual tweaks that are going to be done here, we might very well go evasion here, because again, I think if you go heavy evasion, that might be pretty cool. Have a lot of crit rate and crit damage, and then have a lot of PAL damage, and just kind of see how well that works out. As far as the back accessory talents go, I'm going to probably mimic what I've been doing for Plume and just give myself a stupid amount of evasion. But as far as the actual morph, it's kind of it's going